Let's move here to another CLP subscriber, and this is Sam B. Hello, Sam. You are up next, sir.
Hi, Bart. How's it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can. Sam, have you called into the show before?
I have not.
Oh, okay. First time caller. I didn't think so. And where's this one played out of?
This is out of Parks.
Ah, Parks. Michael G. Land. Do you happen to know moderator extraordinaire Michael G?
Yeah, Mike and I we've become, I'd say, buds over the last few months. Yeah, I see him a lot when we play.
That's great. So is this a 2-5?
Yeah, this is 2-5.
Okay. So 2-5 Parks, and of course this is 1K cap, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay.
Okay, so we're 1400 effective.
Okay.
And the action starts with the hijack limps.
Oh, by the way, I remember this hand here too. And it's not as sort of complex, but it's a really good hand if you want to increase your win rate. So I'm just setting you up, Sam. All right, start back. Okay, so what happens pre-flop?
So hijack open limps.
Open limps. Just straight 2-5.
Yep.
Okay.
The cutoff raises to 25.
Okay.
Heroes in the small blind with 9 of diamonds, 9 of spades.
Okay.
And raises to 100.
So 1 limp, cut off to 25, hero 3 bets to 100. I think that is a pretty decent approach. I don't know if the hijack was like a fishy player, and sometimes guys will over-isolate. And what I mean by over-isolate, which just doesn't make any sense from the cutoff perspective if you take a step back, and I was a little bit guilty of this in my younger days at Commerce 510. I remember I used to like isolate a limp with a hand that I wouldn't have opened with if it just got folded to me. But sometimes your eyes just get wide and you're like, oh, somebody limps in, I'm going to ISO like 5-3 suited. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because in theory, the guy should be tighter when somebody limps and he raises over the top. But okay, so you 3-bet to 100.
And this is where it gets kind of weird. The big blind cold calls the 100.
Okay.
And then both the hijack and the cutoff fold.
So hijack and cutoff fold, and now you're just in there with the big blind cold calling.
Yes.
What's the deal with that guy?
I think he like plays pretty regularly. I've seen him like once or twice before. But he's pretty like straightforward, kind of tight.
Okay.
Yeah, he always like cold call, like 3-bet cold call always has a pretty like condensed range.
Yeah, and again for the live stream, if we have time at the end, I'm actually going to do one of my own hands where I cold called the 3-bet. Now I was on the button. This guy's in the big blind, which is I don't know if I would cold call here in the big blind out of many configurations with people behind me, just because we're so incentivized. I don't really see myself doing a whole lot of cold calling here if I'm in the big blind. But okay, so it's 230, right? And your heads up.
Yep.
From out of position. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the flop comes ace of spades, 10 of hearts, 8 of hearts.
By the way, what do you think a typical cold call range here is in this configuration?
Yeah, kind of, I'll plug the Discord for a sec. People on there talk about it being hands that people think are too good to fold, but they're not comfortable making a 4-bet with. Yeah.
Right.
So a lot of like queens down to like 8s maybe. Kind of depends on player. Maybe some like ace king, some like suited Broadway.
I think like 10-10, Jack-Jack are the ones that really jump out at me. Because you have 9-9, so it's unlikely that he has 9-9. Maybe sometimes Queen-Queen, right? And then depending on the player, for whatever reason, a lot of sort of older players will have Ace-King here too, like Ace-King off. So when you kind of plug that in to this particular board here, I don't think it's the greatest flop for you. Because you kind of want to look at this, because I do remember, I think you're going to make a small C-bet here if I remember correctly. And that might have just been a reflex thing where you're like, well, I'll just make a range bet here. But remember, this is slightly different. You got this guy that cold called sort of 3-bets. And what I would say is that if you were to say just like, he's going to 4-bet kings, right? Maybe he like 4-bets queen, and calls half the time. And then maybe he's got some jacks, and then he's got some 10s, and then he has ace king. It's not a great flop for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he can make a lot of strong hands.
Well, he just might have a lot of strong hands. The only thing you're trying to bluff him off of here would be like queens and jacks, right? So I might check evaluate and just check give up here. I mean, you've got, it's 9 of diamonds, 9 of spades, ace, 10, 8 with 2 hearts. So there's no backdoor here either. And it wouldn't surprise me like if it goes check, check, if he doesn't have an ace here either. So that's my thinking.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, yeah, if we checked him, I think he'd probably play pretty face up on like if he has an ace or set or not.
Okay.
But yeah. So I bet 80.
So here it does bet 80.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, he could have some king queen suited here too. So that's another hand. Yeah. So here bets 80. Okay.
And he just calls.
And big blind calls. By the way, if he were to have like king queen suited here, like, you know, the one hand that you're actually ahead of, you just don't really find people that will bet here when checked to, unless they have like king queen of hearts. You know what I mean? Like they're not going to start a bluff all that much in this, you know, particular situation. The other interesting thing, if they have king queen, if you're playing out of that guy's perspective, is that blocks some of your hands that he wants to fold at some point, right? Like kings and queens. It unblocks jacks and it sort of blocks ace king and ace queen. But okay, so 80. So you start with that 1/3-ish type of thing, and he makes the call. So we're just under 400. We're like at 390 with 9 of diamonds, 9 of spades on ace of spades, 10 of hearts, 8 of hearts, with you in the small blind and the big blind cold calling 3 bets. Okay.
Yep. And then the turn is the 7 of diamonds.
So now you're open-ended. Interesting. So you pick up additional equity here. You pick up additional equity, and you started sort of with a kind of a rangy small bet. So he could be, you know, wider than normal, although he's probably still calling with a lot of hands. Anyways, you want to get like jack, jack, and queen, queen to fold, but jack, jack also picks up a gut shot here. I just don't think he's folding an ace, and obviously not a set now either. And you probably will see a lot of checking on this card if it was a normal 3-bet pot. Again, a situation where the cutoff, let's say the cutoff opened, you 3-bet and the cutoff defended, right, to your 3-bet cutoff versus small blind. You'd probably almost have to check this card a ton. It does change things though with the cold call, because the ranges pre-flop get more condensed and change a little bit here. You know, like if I was in this spot and I were you and I had ace king, I would more happily bet in this scenario based on the big blind cold calling than in a scenario where like cutoff defended to my small blind 3-bet, if you follow me. I'm not saying that I wouldn't bet in that second, but I would feel more comfortable here. So, you know, you could think about throwing in like a large bet and then doing a give up here. No backdoor diamonds come up. Like you could throw a large bet in here, and then if he like you get out, you know, the jack, jack, you get out the queen, queen. And then if he calls, you just sort of give up at the end unless, you know, you make your straight or a 9, by the way. I think I would value bet a 9, because I think if you go large here, jack, jack, I don't know if jack, jack calls. So there is a case to be made for this. It's just really how the guy constructs his cold call 3-betting range here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I ended up checking because I was a little bit worried about if he does have a strong hand now that we picked up open-ended.
You didn't want to get blown off?
Yeah, that would suck. And our hand's not really good enough to call if we do get raised, I think. So
you check.
Yep. And he checks back.
Now, I don't know if I'm going to give this guy credit for really knowing what's going on here in this spot, because, you know, sometimes a card will, you know, you will check, like if I'm your opponent, you will check a certain card here because it's sort of gets very connected for the board, but that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have an ace like I just talked about. But here it's a little bit of a different configuration. So I wonder how often a big blind would check an ace here behind if he had ace king, ace queen. I would tend to think that he would bet with ace king. I don't know why you would check behind.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Especially with, people get overly scared of the flush draw. Especially we could have ace X of hearts maybe too. They want to put money in.
So 390. Okay.
Yep. The river is the 6 of diamonds.
So you make it. Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of interesting because what we were just talking about, how he probably doesn't have a lot of ace X now when he checks back the turn. But just, yeah, so kind of thinking about what we want to target with sizing.
Well, boy, this one is really interesting because I kind of changed my thought when I was thinking about this at first. So a lot of times in live poker, you're in a really great spot if you can make your hand look polarized, even if your opponent doesn't know what polarized means, because you're going to get bluff caught a lot. Like if your opponent just thinks in a given situation that you would never bet a single pair here in this spot, and when you bet this card that's a one-liner to a 9, you're either bluffing or have a 9, you can go thinner with a sort of a much more robust range of hands, like 2 pairs and things like that, and they'll call you down because they don't see anybody else in the player pool bet anything but a straight or air here. With that being said, though, it doesn't appear like this guy has a big ace here because of the turn play. So I'm a little bit torn because you could, if he's going to call a big bet with like jacks or queens here, or some sort of ace that he might have checked behind, like ace jack suited, I can get on board with a big bet. But if he's going to fold out some of that weaker portion, I might half pot it. Now, I will say, Sam, that let's say instead of it going check, check on the turn, right? Let's say it went, you check, big blind bets, like 250, right? And you call, okay? And now the river's a 6, I would absolutely upfront blast it. I would absolutely upfront blast it with the busted hearts coming in on the front door side. I would pot it here, though. Yeah, like I said, it kind of go either way because sometimes a lot of live villains will get curious here and they'll be like, how can this guy be betting this card? And you still might get looked up by jacks or queens for the larger sizing.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking just after, even though like we talked about that you can check ace-x a lot on the turn, a lot of people won't think you would, especially with a flush draw and there's like some straightening cards out there. I actually see a wide variety of, there's some people that say bet huge, like 450. Some people say like bet, like block, like bet 80 to 150 here. So it is kind of interesting. What did you end up doing? Yeah, I went for it. I bet 450.
You bet 450? Wow. Yeah, but the only thing that I would say here though, Sam, like I said, if we make the logical assumption that he doesn't have a lot of ace king here, even if you, like, it's just like, how often do you bluff in this spot? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, yeah. What if you had king queen here? What if you had king jack and then you check the turn and it went check, check? Are you bluffing 450 here at the end on a one-liner to a 9?
I might, just because I think he doesn't have a lot of ace-x, but that's inconsistent with going this big when we have a straight. So,
and the only reason why I bring that up is because I think that it might be a little bit too large in the fact that you might get the folds out now from queen, queen, and jack, jack, because it's just such an underbluffed situation here. And because I don't think he has much ace king, it might be it's one of these things where like, okay, so you take a look at this bet, right? You bet 450. So if it gets called, obviously you have the nuts here. I mean, I know jack 9's the nuts, but the dude doesn't have jack 9, okay? For you warrior commenters who cold 4-bet and then check back the turn. I mean, the hero has the nuts. If you bet 450 and you get called 50% of the time, like what's the EV on that bet?
225.
Yeah. But if you bet, actually, I'm trying to make a point here. Let's say that you get called 1/3 of the time when you bet 450. What's the EV on that bet? Okay, so, and then let's say you bet $200 and you get called 80% of the time. What's the EV on that bet?
160.
Right. So that's what you're trying to find, right? The highest EV outcome. So what ended up happening?
He did not look happy, but he pretty quickly like got calling chips out and then thought for maybe like 30 seconds and called.
Wow, okay, cool. Did you ever get a reveal?
Not exactly. He was talking to me about the hand a bit after, and he was saying that he's like, I didn't have an ace, but I knew you didn't have an ace.
Wow. That would, if that's true, usually people don't lie about their hand like that. There's a lot of people that lie about their hands, and I always giggle because somebody might, a lot of people do that. Somebody might say what they have, and I'm just laughing inside because I know that there's no way that anybody would have what they're saying that they have. But even when I'm not involved, I don't say it. But you don't usually have people lie in that way, where they're like, I didn't have an ace and I called you down. I mean, that goes to what I was saying there before. Like, there's this little niche in live poker where you sometimes would be shocked at how light you can get called down when you make like a large bet. And you play that into a situation where, like, say, Sam, you had king, queen, or king, jack, and we were trying to look for the most efficient bluff size. It will work against you in that spot, right? Where, like, you bet 450 and you get called by jacks or queens, where if you bet 200 or 225, it would have had the same or more fold equity than the 450, right? Even though he's getting a worse price. So, thank you very much for the call, Sam. I appreciate it.